The Appalachian autumn air hung heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and the sweet decay of fallen leaves, clinging to the mist-shrouded hills of Hollow Creek, West Virginia. It was October 27, 2023, a day that felt as ancient as the land itself, a canvas of muted greens and fading golds. Dr. Evelyn Reed, a forensic genealogist whose quiet intensity belied a tenacious spirit, meticulously navigated the treacherous, overgrown terrain of a forgotten cemetery plot on the town's desolate outskirts. Each step crunched over brittle twigs and slick moss, leading her deeper into a realm where time seemed to have paused, preserving secrets beneath layers of neglect and silence. The only sounds were her measured footsteps and the mournful whisper of the wind through skeletal oak branches, a prelude to the hidden truths she sought. Her breath plumed in the cold, a visible sign of her focused resolve against the encroaching chill. Evelyn finally stooped, her gaze fixed on a crumbling slate headstone, barely distinguishable from the earth that claimed it. Generations of moss and lichen had obscured its surface, rendering it a mute testament to a forgotten existence. The rhythmic thud of her small trowel against the stubborn soil was the only punctuation in the profound silence, a steady beat against the heart of the past. With painstaking care, she brushed away a clump of mud, her movements precise and deliberate. Beneath the grime, a faint, crudely carved initial began to emerge, a single stark letter, E. A chill, unrelated to the autumn air, ran down her spine, a prickle of intuition telling her this wasn't just an old grave. This wasn't just an old grave, it felt like a secret, deliberately buried. Evelyn traced the faint E with a gloved finger, the rough stone, a cold echo of lives unrecorded, stories untold. For weeks, her research into Hollow Creek's historical records had hinted at a pattern of absence, a curious void in the lives of certain women, almost as if they had never existed. Now, this single, crude initial hidden beneath layers of time and earth felt like the first tangible proof of a profound, systematic erasure. It begged the haunting question: who were these women? Why were their lives deemed unworthy of record? And what dark truth had Hollow Creek worked so desperately to bury for generations? Back in the fluorescent-lit confines of the Hollow Creek County Clerk's office, the stark contrast to the cemetery's ancient quiet was jarring. Dr. Evelyn Reed spread her meticulous notes across a worn counter, a map of early 20th century census data, highlighting curious demographic dips. She requested specific birth and death certificates from the 1920s to 1940s, cross-referencing names that mysteriously vanished from subsequent records. The clerk, a woman named Beverly with a tight smile and an even tighter bun, offered only a dismissive wave. "Honey, those old records are a mess. Half of them probably never made it to the state. We got what we got, and what we got is online these days." Her tone was polite, but firm, an invisible wall rising between Evelyn and the past. This wasn't just inefficiency. It felt like a deliberate obstruction, a first skirmish in a quiet war for truth, hinting at a systemic issue extending beyond mere administrative oversight, deeply embedded in the very fabric of Hollow Creek's official memory. Evelyn, accustomed to bureaucratic hurdles, pressed on, citing her credentials and the Freedom of Information Act, reminding Beverly of her right to access public records, particularly those pertinent to historical research. Beverly's smile tightened further, her gaze flicking nervously to a closed office door. "Dr. Reed, I understand your academic interest, but these aren't some city archives. This is Hollow Creek. Our records are unique. Many births occurred at home, never saw a doctor. Deaths were handled by family. We simply don't have comprehensive files for that era, especially if they weren't deemed official by the folks back then." The unspoken implication hung heavy. Some lives were simply not worth recording, a local truth that superseded any state mandate. This evasiveness confirmed Evelyn's suspicion. The gaps were not accidental. Frustrated by the official stonewalling, Evelyn shifted her approach. The official channels were clearly blocked, but the community itself held the keys to its past. She began frequenting the local diner, the only place in town where conversations lingered longer than a handshake. It was there she first encountered Silas Boone, an octogenarian whose eyes held the weary wisdom of generations. He was initially welcoming, sharing anecdotes about Hollow Creek's logging history and the old schoolhouse. But the moment Evelyn gently steered the conversation towards specific family names, or the unusual lack of women in certain lineages from the early 20th century, a subtle shift occurred. His politeness became a shield, his gaze distant, his answers vague, redirecting her inquiries with practiced ease, like a river flowing around an inconvenient stone. The whispers began subtly, almost imperceptibly, carried on the thin Appalachian air. Evelyn noticed the way conversations hushed when she entered the general store, the quick, knowing glances exchanged between older residents. She started engaging with younger locals, less burdened by the community's deepest secrets, but still aware of the unspoken rules. A waitress at the diner mentioned, an old auntie who never left the house, bless her heart. A gas station attendant recalled vague stories of cousins who went away and were never spoken of again, their names fading from family trees like ghosts. These fragments, disjointed and hesitant, painted a consistent picture, a pattern of absence, of lives lived in the shadows, deliberately erased from both official records and collective memory, confirming Evelyn's chilling intuition. The forensic anthropologist's preliminary report landed in Evelyn's inbox like a lead weight. Back at the Forgotten Cemetery plot, where the E marked a beginning, Evelyn felt a renewed urgency, the cold resistance from the county clerk and Silas Boone now making chilling sense. The report, concise and clinical, confirmed her darkest suspicions. The skeletal remains, meticulously exhumed and analyzed, showed clear evidence of severe congenital deformities. The pathologist's language was detached, scientific, yet the implications were devastating. Malformations of the spine, atypical bone density, and indicators of profound developmental issues. This was not merely an old grave. It was a testament to a life marked by significant physical struggle, a life that the community had seemingly gone to great lengths to conceal, now scientifically validated. The report further speculated on the likely etiology, pointing towards genetic conditions, potentially exacerbated by consanguinity, inbreeding. Evelyn knew such occurrences were not uncommon in isolated Appalachian communities, where generations had lived and married within a limited gene pool due to geographical and social barriers. The medical terminology painted a grim picture of suffering, individuals born with profound physical challenges, requiring constant care, often hidden from a society that would have judged them harshly, or worse, subjected them to the eugenics movement's cruel ideologies. This scientific confirmation solidified Evelyn's resolve. She was no longer just tracing names but uncovering a systemic pattern of tragic human lives deliberately erased, proving the hidden E was not an isolated incident, but a chilling symptom of a much larger unspoken legacy. The weight of the anthropologist's findings pressed down on Evelyn. The official records had been a dead end, the locals evasive. But now she had tangible scientific proof. This wasn't just about missing names. It was about human beings, suffering, hidden, and then forgotten. She spent days poring over old state health department reports, searching for any mention of unique medical conditions in Hollow Creek, any public health initiatives that might have touched upon genetic anomalies. But the records were silent, or at least conveniently so. It was as if the entire health history of this specific affliction had been scrubbed clean, leaving no official trace. This deliberate void spoke volumes, confirming the depth of the community's concerted efforts to bury its truth, not just from the state, but from history itself. Just as the bureaucratic and historical archives proved barren, a lifeline appeared from an unexpected quarter. An email, terse and slightly cryptic, landed in Evelyn's inbox late one evening. The sender, identifying herself only as Eleanor Vance, claimed to be a distant relative of Martha May, a midwife who had served Hollow Creek for decades in the early 20th century. The message hinted at family papers that might shed light on Evelyn's research, mentioning things Martha May kept to herself. It was a tentative outreach, born perhaps from an old woman's conscience or a desire to finally unburden herself of a family secret. The email contained no further details, only a small-town address an hour's drive from Hollow Creek, a glimmer of hope in the deepening shadows. The next morning, Evelyn drove north, the rolling hills of West Virginia gradually giving way to slightly more developed terrain. Eleanor Vance lived in a modest, well-kept home on the outskirts of Summersville, a town far enough from Hollow Creek to be disconnected from its insular grip. Eleanor, frail but with piercing blue eyes that missed nothing, greeted Evelyn cautiously. She spoke of Martha May with a mix of reverence and a lingering sadness. Martha May was a good woman, did her best for folks, Eleanor began, her voice raspy with age. But she carried burdens, secrets the whole town shared. I heard about your digging, Dr. Reed. Felt like it was time some of that burden was lifted. Martha May believed in truth, even when it hurt. Eleanor led Evelyn to a small, dusty attic room, redolent with the scent of aged paper and forgotten memories. From a heavy cedar chest, she carefully retrieved a wooden box, its surface smooth from generations of handling. This was Martha May's, her most private things, Eleanor explained, her voice barely a whisper. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed photographs and dried flowers, lay two items that made Evelyn's heart pound. A thick, leather-bound diary, its pages brittle with age, and a faded, canvas-covered ledger. The ledger, dense with handwritten entries, appeared to be a midwife's registry, but Evelyn's eyes immediately caught the unusual symbols and coded notations next to certain female births. This was it. The cryptic ledger, the hidden archive, the key to unlocking Hollow Creek's deepest, darkest secret. Evelyn's hands trembled slightly as she opened Martha May's ledger, its brittle pages a silent testament to decades of hidden lives. The coded entries next to certain female births weren't just random symbols. They were a systematic notation, a secret language Martha May used to record what the official world refused to acknowledge. Evelyn meticulously cross-referenced these entries with the dates from her forensic anthropologist's report, particularly the period around the 1920s to 1940s. A chilling pattern emerged. Births of infants with severe deformities, marked by Martha May's cryptic symbols, followed by no official death records or only vague, unregistered passings. The diary, meanwhile, provided the emotional context. Martha May's anguished entries detailing the suffering of these children and the desperate pleas from families to keep their existence a secret, fearing not only shame but the state's eugenics men. Brew. This wasn't merely a record of births, it was a chronicle of deliberate, community-sanctioned erasure, now starkly illuminated by scientific fact. Armed with this new, albeit coded data, Evelyn returned to her digital archives, attempting to cross-reference Martha May's veiled entries with national databases. She pored over the Social Security Death Index, early 20th century state vital records, and even historical hospital admissions from neighboring counties, searching for any faint echo of the names or dates suggested by the midwife's cryptic notes. The silence was deafening, a stark confirmation of the thoroughness of Hollow Creek's historical cover-up. Names that Martha May hinted at simply didn't exist in official channels, or if they did, they were often truncated, misspelled, or connected to entirely different families, creating a digital ghost town where these women should have been. This systematic void underscored the depth of the community's concerted effort to bury its truth, not just from the state, but from history itself, digitally reinforcing the physical erasure she'd found in the cemetery. The sheer scale of the historical suppression compelled Evelyn to take a bolder step. She compiled a comprehensive dossier, including the forensic anthropologist's detailed report, photographic evidence of the unmarked grave, and meticulously transcribed excerpts from Martha May's diary and ledger, carefully explaining the coded entries. Her next stop was the West Virginia State Police headquarters in Charleston, specifically the Cold Case Division, hoping their resources could cut through decades of local obfuscation. Detective Harding, a seasoned veteran with a skeptical gaze, listened patiently, but his initial reaction was guarded. Dr. Reed, this is a lot. We're talking about events from nearly a century ago, with unofficial documents and a burial site that was, by all accounts, known only to a select few. Proving anything concrete will be a monumental challenge, he stated, his voice betraying a familiar blend of bureaucratic caution and unspoken doubt. Evelyn, undeterred, pressed her case, emphasizing the scientific validation provided by the skeletal remains. Detective, this isn't just an old family secret or an isolated incident. The forensic report confirms severe congenital deformities, consistent with conditions often exacerbated by consanguinity. Martha May's ledger, though coded, shows a tour pattern north of these births, followed by systematic disappearance from official records across multiple families in Hollow Creek. This suggests a concerted, generational effort to hide a widespread genetic tragedy, not a series of individual choices. The community actively erased these lives to avoid the stigma and the very real threat of the eugenics movement, which was highly active in the state during that era. This isn't just genealogy, it's a profound historical injustice that demands official investigation. Her voice, though calm, carried an undeniable force of conviction. Harding, a man accustomed to the gritty realities of contemporary crime, found himself increasingly swayed by Evelyn's methodical presentation and the chilling consistency of her findings. The sheer volume of evidence, from the forensic anthropologist's clinical assessment to Martha May's poignant, handwritten accounts of suffering and secrecy, began to chip away at his initial skepticism. After a lengthy consultation with his superiors and a review of Evelyn's meticulously compiled dossier, the state police agreed to a limited collaboration. They would cross-reference names and dates from Martha May's ledger, where possible, against old county sheriff's reports, property deeds, and any archived state health department records that might contain oblique references to the families in question. It was a cautious, tentative step, but for Evelyn, it was a crucial crack in Hollow Creek's impenetrable wall of silence, a sign that the official world was finally beginning to listen. The state police's initial foray into Hollow Creek's past quickly hit a formidable wall. Detective Harding, his face grim, reported back to Evelyn, "Dr. Reed, we followed up on every lead from Martha May's ledger that offered even a whisper of official recognition. We cross-referenced names and dates against old county sheriff's reports, property deeds, and even scanned archived state health department records from that era. The result? A void. These individuals, as Martha May meticulously documented their births and subsequent disappearances, simply don't exist in any official capacity. No birth certificates, death certificates, property ownership, or school enrollment. It's as if they were never born, never lived, never died, without a direct link to a recent criminal act or undeniable contemporary evidence. Our division's resources are legally constrained. Our limited collaboration has reached its limit against a century of deliberate silence." Frustrated but undeterred, Evelyn understood the bureaucratic reality. The state police had gone as far as they could without a criminal predicate. Her next move was legal. Consulting with a public interest attorney specializing in historical records, she prepared a petition for a court order. The aim was ambitious: to compel the county to unseal any unofficial, privately held archives, or even permit further exhumation in other suspected hidden burial sites hinted at in Martha May's diary. The court's response was swift and unyielding. Citing insufficient probable cause, the immense passage of time, and the delicate balance of disturbing private land and family histories without clear evidence of a crime, the judge denied the order. Dr. Reed, her attorney, relayed, "The court views these as historical matters, not criminal investigations requiring judicial intervention into private lives." The denial of the court order felt like a physical blow. Evelyn had banked on the legal system's power to finally break through Hollow Creek's centuries-old omerta. Instead, the very mechanisms designed to uphold justice were inadvertently protecting the profound silence she sought to shatter. She understood the judge's reasoning, but it underscored the immense, almost insurmountable challenge of proving a historical injustice when the evidence itself, the lives of these women, had been so meticulously and systematically erased. The first obstacle was not merely a bureaucratic hurdle, it was the chilling realization that the system was not equipped, or perhaps not yet willing, to easily dismantle a century of deliberate historical suppression, especially when those responsible were long dead and no one alive could be held criminally accountable. The truth of the Hollow Creek women remained trapped just beyond her reach. The court's dismissal, though a stinging setback, only fueled Evelyn's resolve. Legal avenues were closed, official records scrubbed, but the earth itself held an undeniable truth. She shifted her focus from paper trails to physical evidence, seeking a technology that could pierce through generations of silence without disturbing the fragile remains. Her mind turned to ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, a non-invasive method used by archaeologists to map subsurface features. If Hollow Creek had deliberately buried its secrets, then perhaps the very ground could reveal them. This wasn't about proving a crime in a courtroom, but about validating the tragic existence of the Hollow Creek women, giving scientific weight to Martha May's coded entries and the anthropologist's chilling preliminary report. Evelyn knew this scientific approach was her last, best hope to make the invisible visible. Evelyn immediately reached out to a geoarchaeology department at West Virginia University. Dr. Anya Sharma, a sharp, pragmatic researcher with a specialization in historical burial sites, responded with cautious interest. Evelyn presented her meticulously compiled dossier, the forensic report, Martha May's diary excerpts, and the initial findings from the grave. Dr. Sharma understood the ethical imperative. GPR technology works by sending electromagnetic waves into the ground and recording the reflections, creating a subsurface image. It could detect disturbed soil, grave shafts, and even coffin anomalies without a single shovel breaking earth. The challenge, Dr. Sharma noted, would be securing access to private lands, but the scientific potential to uncover such a profound historical pattern was too significant to ignore. Their first survey began back at the forgotten cemetery plot, the same mist-shrouded ground where Evelyn had first unearthed the E. Under the watchful, silent gaze of skeletal oak branches, Dr. Sharma meticulously guided the GPR unit across the uneven terrain. The data streamed onto a portable monitor, translating subterranean echoes into visual patterns. What they saw was both heartbreaking and validating. Immediately surrounding the known E grave, the GPR revealed a cluster of distinct subsurface anomalies, multiple oblong disturbances consistent with other unmarked, shallow burials. The scientific evidence was undeniable. The E was not an isolated incident. The ground beneath their feet was a silent, crowded testament to more lives deliberately hidden, mirroring the anthropologist's earlier findings and confirming Evelyn's deepest fears about the scale of the erasure. Armed with this initial confirmation, Evelyn and Dr. Sharma expanded their search, guided by Martha May's diary. The midwife's cryptic notes, once abstract and mournful, now became a precise map. The Old Oak by Miller's Creek, a diary entry about a child named Sarah, led them to a long-abandoned family homestead, where the GPR quickly identified a series of shallow, linear anomalies in a secluded patch of woods. Another entry, referencing, quote, behind the old church where the creek turns, pointed to a small, overgrown knoll on what was once the Miller family property. Here, too, the radar painted a grim picture of systematic soil disturbance, indicating multiple unrecorded burials. Each GPR scan, each new anomaly, was a chilling confirmation that Martha May's anguished words were a literal blueprint of Hollow Creek's hidden grief. The cumulative weight of the GPR findings was staggering. Across Hollow Creek, in forgotten corners of old homesteads and neglected churchyards, Dr. Sharma's technology had revealed dozens of consistent, unmarked burial sites. This wasn't just a few isolated incidents. It was a pervasive, generational pattern of deliberate concealment. The visual, scientific data provided irrefutable proof that the community had indeed gone to extraordinary lengths to bury its truth, not just from state records, but from the physical landscape itself. Evelyn now possessed concrete, non-invasive evidence that transformed Martha May's coded entries from a midwife's secret into a scientifically validated, tragic historical reality. The Hollow Creek women were no longer just names in a hidden ledger. Their final resting places, though still nameless, had been found. The GPR findings were a triumph, yet Evelyn felt a profound emptiness. Dozens of anomalies, silent echoes beneath the earth, confirmed Martha May's tragic chronicle, but these were still nameless, faceless graves. The scientific data validated the existence of the Hollow Creek women, but not their Thai identities. To truly honor them, Evelyn knew she needed more than just grave markers. She needed names, stories, a human connection to the past. The official channels remained sealed, the court unmoved. Her gaze returned to Silas Boone. He was the living archive, the reluctant keeper of generations of whispered truths. With the weight of the GPR maps and Martha May's diary, Evelyn knew she had to try one last time to break through his formidable wall of silence, not with accusation, but with undeniable scientific proof. Evelyn found Silas on his porch swing, whittling a piece of oak, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. She sat opposite him, not pressing, but gently laying out the GPR images, the swirling patterns of disturbed earth, a stark contrast to the peaceful Appalachian landscape. Next to them, she opened Martha May's diary, pointing to a coded entry from 1937, a year that, according to the midwife, marked the birth of a girl with the shadow in Silas's own lineage, a child never officially recorded. Silas, Evelyn began, her voice soft but firm. The ground doesn't lie. And Martha May chronicled what the records couldn't. This isn't just history anymore. It's a testament to real lives, to asterisk your family's lives. His whittling knife stilled. His eyes, usually so guarded, flickered with a deep, ancestral pain. The old man remained silent for a long moment, the only sound the distant call of a hawk. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, Silas placed the whittling knife on the porch rail. His gaze met Evelyn's, and for the first time, the protective shield around him seemed to crack, revealing a lifetime of suppressed grief. There's another place," he rasped, his voice thick with unshed tears. "Not just the churchyard, a place deeper in the woods, on the old Boone homestead. My grandmother, she kept a book too, not a diary, but a family Bible. It has entries, names, dates, the ones Martha May helped hide. It's buried like them, but I can show you." This was the shift, the internal betrayal of silence that Evelyn had desperately sought, a personal, agonizing admission that promised to unearth more than just graves. It promised names. After Silas's agonizing admission, he led Evelyn deeper into the winding ancient woods behind his property, the silence broken only by the crunch of leaves underfoot. He stopped at a small, almost imperceptible rise, shrouded by wild rhododendrons. "This is it," he whispered, his voice hoarse with generations of unspoken grief. He knelt, digging with his bare hands at the base of an old, gnarled oak, eventually unearthing a rusted metal box. Inside, carefully wrapped in oilcloth, was an immense, leather-bound family Bible. Its pages, brittle and yellowed, contained not just the traditional family tree, but meticulous handwritten entries. Births, deaths, and alongside many female names, cryptic notations mirroring Martha May's ledger, confirming lives lived and lost in secret. A raw, profound ache settled in Evelyn's chest as she finally saw names, real names, alongside the tragic pattern she had uncovered. Armed with this irrefutable proof, the GPR maps, Martha May's coded diary, Silas's heartbreaking testimony, and now the Boone family Bible providing actual names, Evelyn knew the time for quiet research was over. She scheduled a press conference in Charleston, working with the Historical Preservation Society she was affiliated with. The story broke like a dam, a torrent of national and regional news outlets descending on the small, forgotten town of Hollow Creek. Headlines screamed, "Appalachia's hidden graves, the forgotten women of Hollow Creek," and "Century of silence shattered, genealogist uncovers mass erasure." The narrative, framed with Evelyn's meticulous findings, painted a vivid, tragic picture of lives intentionally expunged from history, igniting a fierce public debate about historical injustice and the dark shadow of the eugenics movement in America. The media circus that descended upon Hollow Creek was unprecedented. Satellite trucks choked the narrow county roads, reporters with microphones chased residents, and the once peaceful diner became a hotbed of whispered conversations and heated arguments. The community, long accustomed to its insular quiet, was thrown into disarray. Some locals, particularly younger generations, expressed shock and a desire for truth, while others, older and steeped in generations of silence, reacted with fierce defensiveness, accusing Evelyn of dredging up old wounds and shaming their ancestors. Silas Boone, once a respected elder, now faced a painful schism within his own community, some viewing him as a traitor, others as a reluctant hero. The tension was palpable, a suffocating shroud of conflicting emotions hanging heavy over the mist-shrouded hills. As the story of the Hollow Creek women gained national traction, it resonated far beyond the Appalachian foothills. Disability rights advocates, historical justice organizations, and even genealogical societies weighed in, calling for official recognition, memorialization, and a thorough, respectful investigation into the newly revealed burial sites. Pressure mounted on state authorities, including the West Virginia State Police, to re-evaluate their earlier dismissal of Evelyn's claims. The quiet academic pursuit had transformed into a public reckoning, a high-stakes battle for historical truth and the dignity of forgotten lives. Evelyn, thrust into the spotlight, found herself navigating a complex ethical landscape, balancing the imperative to expose the truth with the need to respect the delicate fabric of a community grappling with its painful past. Evelyn found Silas on his porch swing, whittling a piece of oak, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. She sat opposite him, not pressing, but gently laying out the GPR images, the swirling patterns of disturbed earth, a stark contrast to the peaceful Appalachian landscape. Next to them, she opened Martha May's diary, pointing to a coded entry from 1937, a year that, according to the midwife, marked the birth of a girl with the shadow in Silas's own lineage, a child never officially recorded. "Silas," Evelyn began, her voice soft but firm, "the ground doesn't lie." And Martha May chronicled what the records couldn't. "This isn't just history anymore. It's a testament to real lives, to asterisk your family's lives. Beatrice, your great-aunt, her quiet resilience despite severe deformities, her love for simple things, and the family's immense grief surrounding her young death, is all here." His whittling knife stilled. His eyes, usually so guarded, flickered with a deep, ancestral pain. The old man remained silent for a long moment, the only sound the distant call of a hawk. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, Silas placed the whittling knife on the porch rail. His gaze met Evelyn's, and for the first time, the protective shield around him seemed to crack, revealing a lifetime of suppressed grief. There's another place," he rasped, his voice thick with unshed tears. "Not just the churchyard, a place deeper in the woods on the old Boone homestead. My grandmother, she kept a book too, not a diary, but a family Bible. It has entries, names, dates, the ones Martha May helped hide. It's buried, like them, but I can show you." With trembling hands, he then produced a faded photograph from his shirt pocket. Beatrice, a young woman with a gentle, if pained, smile, the only known image of a life deliberately erased. This agonizing admission finally unburdened Silas, promising to reveal the full scope of the tragedy. After Silas's agonizing admission, he led Evelyn deeper into the winding ancient woods behind his property, the silence broken only by the crunch of leaves underfoot. He stopped at a small, almost imperceptible rise, shrouded by wild rhododendrons. "This is it," he whispered, his voice hoarse with generations of unspoken grief. He knelt, digging with his bare hands at the base of an old, gnarled oak, eventually unearthing a rusted metal box. Inside, carefully wrapped in oilcloth, was an immense, leather-bound family Bible. Its pages, brittle and yellowed, contained not just the traditional family tree, but meticulous handwritten entries. Births, deaths, and alongside many female names, cryptic notations mirroring Martha May's ledger, confirming lives lived and lost in secret. A raw, profound ache settled in Evelyn's chest as she finally saw names, real names, alongside the tragic patterns she had uncovered, validating the scope of Hollow Creek's hidden grief. In the wake of the national outcry and the undeniable evidence presented by Dr. Reed, the West Virginia Department of Vital Statistics, under immense public and historical society pressure, initiated an unprecedented project. Working closely with Evelyn, they began the arduous task of formally acknowledging the Hollow Creek women. Though no living individual could be held criminally accountable for events a century old, the state's official records, once a testament to their deliberate erasure, slowly began to document their existence. Each name painstakingly added, each birth and passing meticulously recorded based on Martha May's ledger and Silas's testimony, chipped away at the century of silence, providing a symbolic yet profoundly significant act of restorative justice. This official recognition finally gave these women a rightful place in the historical memory of West Virginia, acknowledging a truth that had been buried for too long. Back in Hollow Creek, the raw emotions simmered, creating a palpable tension that split the tight-knit community. While some older residents clung fiercely to the old ways, dismissing the revelations as a shameful past best left buried, a significant number, particularly younger generations and those with their own vague family stories, openly embraced the truth, seeking healing. A small, solemn memorial now stands at the main rediscovered burial site, a simple stone marker engraved with "The Forgotten Women of Hollow Creek," a quiet yet powerful testament to lives once hidden. This monument, and the national conversation it sparked across America, transformed Hollow Creek from a town guarding a painful secret into a poignant symbol of the nation's own complex history, with eugenics and the profound human cost of societal prejudice, forcing a difficult but necessary reckoning. For Silas, the burden he had carried for decades was finally lifted, granting him a measure of peace in his final years. He spent his remaining days sharing Beatrice's story, ensuring her gentle smile, captured in that faded photograph, would never be forgotten again. Evelyn, observing the quiet dignity of the new memorial and the ongoing dialogue, felt a profound sense of purpose fulfilled. Her meticulous research had not only unearthed a local tragedy, but ignited a national conversation on historical erasure, the dark legacy of the eugenics movement, and the enduring fight for disability rights. It proved that even the smallest, most forgotten lives, when brought into the light, can reshape our understanding of history and demand a more inclusive future. If this powerful story of resilience and truth has moved you, please like this video, subscribe to our channel for more untold American histories, and click the link here to watch our deep dive into the broader eugenics movement across the nation and its lasting impact.